Hello, I bought this Teksumo a while ago, quite a while ago actually, last year sometime, with the intention of making it into a blunt nose conversion, so there'll be a section in the middle that holds the battery and the camera and all that stuff, and the wings will attach to the outside of it. And I just never really got around to it, but I finally am now, so I just thought I'd make a little record of what I was doing. So I'm just going to use this 3mm plywood, and I don't have any cool plans laid out as to what I'm going to do with it. I originally thought that I might be able to use my CNC machine to cut the parts for it, but turns out that the CNC machine that I ended up with is a little bit too small to make one piece or one cut for the whole length of this. It's like 28 centimeters or so, and my machine goes only to 24, I think, if I'm lucky. So I'm just going to do everything by hand, and I'm going to use this 10mm carbon fibre rod as a spar to make sure that the wings and the centre section are solidly connected. And I'll probably use some of these bits of balsa wood to put in the corners between the. I'm going to have a vertical and horizontal pieces of plywood, and I want to just make sure that they're all stuck together, so I'll put those in the corner to hopefully hold it together a little bit better. I will use my CNC machine to cut a plate for the back for the motor mount, because that's only going to be a small plate, should be no problem. But apart from that, it's all just going to be a little bit of sawing and cutting everything by hand, I think. So the first thing I did was fill up these gaps in the bottom where normally you would put your receiver and all that stuff in there. I just plugged it with some foam. It's a little bit softer than EPP, but it doesn't really matter. It's such a beautiful day today that I've actually brought the workbench all the way outside so I can use sunlight. So at this point I'm thinking it'll be something like this. These two balsa beams will be part of the bottom plate, and there'll be a little piece up on each side, and these components that I have laid out there will be sitting on another piece which is just flat with no vertical sides, and it will be able to slide backwards and forwards to help balance the CG. And at the back, the motor and the ESC will be fixed to the bottom plate, so they will not be able to move around. And the reason I've put the flight controller, so I'm thinking to try iNav on this probably, but the reason I put the flight controller right behind the camera is because I have ordered a RunCam split, and that will be able to mount onto the same screw holes as the flight controller, but it needs to be quite close to the camera. So that's why the flight controller is there. And then there'll be a plywood baffle between these two sections here where the video transmitter can attach to, and the receiver will be out on the wing like that. So I didn't really want to put anything into the wing that much really, but I mean that's not going to matter. And I do like the way I mounted these on Teksumo last time I did it. One sort of flat in the wing like that, and the other one poking up at 90 degrees to it, which works out quite well. So yeah, that's how things are looking at the moment. So the battery, this is a 3S2800, and I'm thinking to accommodate up to a 3S4000, which is the biggest 3S I have. Well, I have a 5200, but I don't think it's probably too big for a Teksumo to carry. So 3S4000 is what I'm aiming for as the maximum battery for this. So that's kind of what it's going to look like. I don't want it to be too blunt, because it sort of seems to me that the pointiness of this front part is quite helpful when it comes to keeping it, facing forwards, keeping the yaw stability. And I've noticed with the S800 Sky Shadow, which is quite a blunt front, it can get a bit wobbly in yaw sometimes, and I think that might have something to do with it. Anyway, so spar is going to go there, and I'm thinking that this plywood piece will extend underneath all the way out to here, under the wing, to support it that way. Only trouble is this plywood, it's strong, but it's quite heavy. So it's a bit of a bummer, but I'll go ahead with that anyway. So that piece will stick on the bottom like that. And the reason I didn't go all the way to the front is because from about this point on, the wing sort of curves a bit, and I didn't want it to be trying to stick a flat piece of plywood to a curved piece of wing. And plus, like I say, it's kind of heavy, so I didn't really want to make it too big. So the other piece is inside with some glue drying, but in the meantime I'm going to cut this one, and, well, I've already cut this one, and it's going to be like that. And I'm just thinking thought I was going to cut this off, but I might just leave it like that actually. I don't mind that it sticks out a bit, and I think I'm going to do away with having a sliding piece in here, and I'll just make it all one piece. I realised that it wasn't going to be very strong if it wasn't all one piece, so I'm going to fortify this area quite a lot, and I think I'm going to put a piece of clear acrylic in front here so that the FPV camera can see through it. Now this is an 8-inch prop. I'm probably not going to use an 8-inch prop, but I'd like to at least have that possibility, so it's going to have to go about there, and it's going to have to be something fairly long to get it out there, which I haven't really thought of at this point. Okay, it's the next day now, and this is all dried up. Another beautiful day, so I'll be out here in the sun again, and Puss is enjoying it too. Anyway, so this piece is going to go on here like that. So it's going to look like that, and this bit's going to go on there. It's going to be a box like that. Now the spar is going to have to go in there too, so I just cut out those little bits for that to fit into. It's going to go like that. There we go. It's all looking rather boxy now, isn't it? But most of this is going to be inside the wing, only the top part's going to be protruding, so the non-aerodynamic shape of it is hopefully not going to be too much of an issue. Now, I'm apparently not very good at watching things dry, so I'm going to have to hand this over to my glue drying supervisor to make sure it gets done properly. And while the glue was drying on that, I sanded off this area that's going to be stuck to the plywood on the bottom of the wing, because this surface, without preparing it or sanding it a bit, just doesn't seem to stick very well. So this should stick it very nicely, and I sanded it quite aggressively with some pretty coarse sandpaper, and I've actually taken probably 2mm or so away from the surface as well, so when the plywood goes on, it's 3mm plywood, it's only going to stick up about 1mm or so outside the wing. And of course I'll sand it off at the edges as well, so it should be fairly smooth, shouldn't be too much of an interruption to the airflow. So it's going to sit like that, and now I need to hot wire cut a little piece along here out of the bottom of the wing for the spar to sit in when it goes upside down. To cut that groove under the wing, I've come up with this funny looking thing here. It's just a piece of nichrome wire to do a hot wire cutting with, of course, and last time I did this for a small thing like that, I used a very, very small length of nichrome wire, probably total of about 10 centimeters or so, and I used the switching power supply voltage regulator thingy, DP5015 or whatever it was that I had, and although it did the job, I set it to 1 amp constant current, and it worked. And but the problem was that after that it didn't work, so I don't think it liked to be doing this kind of thing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to use a LiPo battery directly, and to do that means I need a much longer length of wire. So what I've done here is I have that wire stuck around there, and I just put the put that in there to get me the right size, and then these two wires come over here separated to points there where I can connect my battery to. So that'll give me just over 1 meter, and I'll try that with 2S first, and if it's too cold I'll bump it up to 3S, and I'm pretty sure 3S should be able to cut with about 1 meter of this nichrome wire. Should be fine, and I'm not risking damaging my voltage regulator this time. Well, I actually had to use 4S. Neither 2 or 3S were both not enough, but seems to be okay now. It's a little bit slow. Is it working? Yeah, it's too slow for me to really record and show you, but oh, here we go. Oh, it's just warming up still. What? Ah, folded back. The trouble with this method is that as the wire heats up, it gets softer and then it just folds back. And what happened there was, maybe you can see that it's just sort of cut gradually more shallow as it moved along until the wire just completely folded backwards. So I'm not sure what I can do about that, because it needs to get to that heat to cut it at all. Yeah, I'll just have to go really, really slow, I guess. Okay, done. So although it was incredibly slow, it does do a very nice job. Only problem is it's slightly shallow, probably because the wire was bending back a little, so I'm just going to have to use a little bit of sandpaper to make that channel deep enough. Well, what do you know, it's another beautiful day in the Waikato. We're having a pretty good winter this year, not like last year. So I've stuck this up, the epoxy's all dry and it seems to do its job pretty well. I didn't use a whole lot, but I think that'll be enough. It's going to have some Gorilla Glue going over the top of it when it gets inside the wing anyway. And in there it's just a little bit. It sits in there pretty good, and this is stuck on nicely. All looking good, so I'm just doing a little bit of painting now. And I just plonked this down on the grass and sprayed it without thinking about the acrylic window at the front, so of course I got a little bit of paint splattered on there before I realised what was going on. But fortunately the Terps that I used to clean it off does a very good job on this acrylic, and it wasn't damaged or smeared or polluted in any way, and it's still, you know, perfectly crystal clear until the first crash. So the bottom's going to be black. One of the winglets is going to be black and the other one's going to be orange, and I'm making these out of just that foam board like the flight test guys use, except this is the one that I bought in New Zealand, which is heavy, so it's not very good for making a whole plane out of, but paint sticks nicely to it, and it's a lot stiffer than the winglets of the Teksumo, the ones that come with it, the default ones. So I thought I might try this because it's very, very stiff. So instead of those floppy ones, I'm going to try these. And I'm just going to hot glue them on in case I don't like them later. The hot glue should be easy to pull off again with some methylated spirits. Okay, I think it's time to glue these parts together now, the wings and this middle section that is. So to do this, I kind of puzzled over how I could do this for a while, because the problem is you need to clamp the wings down like that, and you also need to quite firmly clamp them inwards like that. So there's sort of these two clamping directions that are required, but I've come up with this cunning plan here, which is firstly you put some baking paper down on the desk so that you don't glue this all to the desk. That would make me look like a prize fool, wouldn't it? So that's the first thing, and then I've screwed this down to the desk so it's not moving anywhere, and then I've put nails like that, which are just a little bit too small for the wing to fit in when the spar is inside, so you can see it sort of pressing in on there a little bit, and I've got just a little bit of a gap there. I had to sand this to get it to sort of fit in fairly flat. It's actually still not that great, but I'm going to use Gorilla Glue for this, so it should expand to fill that gap anyway. And then the easy part is to just put something on here and clamp it down. So that's my cunning plan, and this one's going to click into place there and it should not go anywhere. So these nails are actually slightly bent that way as well, and hopefully that little dent will spring back after it's removed. Okay, done. That took quite a while. Used up a lot of this golden syrup too. It's probably more golden syrup than I've used on anything else so far. But there it is, and I think my clamping procedure will work quite well. It actually took so long that this side that I did first is already starting to puff up. I always wonder with this Gorilla Glue whether I've put enough in, and it always turns out that I've put slightly too much in. So in another few hours that'll be puffing up quite a bit, I think. But that's kind of good because it means at least it's going to fill up that crack fairly well, I hope. Alright, I let that dry overnight, and it is of course extremely well stuck together, and I think I got the amount of glue about right. Like, I wanted to see sort of a bit of bubbling over like that. Could have perhaps had a little bit more on these front sections. Oh, that's good. Yeah, really well stuck together. Unfortunately, one of these bottles that I put on, this one that was here, slipped off the back during the night sometime, and it must have been quite early, because what I've ended up with, if we look at this side is perfect. Beautiful, beautiful drawing there. But over here, unfortunately, it has lifted up, and I think that was due to me putting that extra bottle out on the further part of the wing, because that area there was then being pressed down and this area tended to lift up. So if anybody does try that sort of technique where I stuck this down to the table and used nails to hold the wing in place, which by the way they haven't actually bounced back yet, but I think they yeah, it's not a big deal. But if you do try that and you use these slippery kind of bottles with this smooth surface that slide on this surface, put a few more nails just here to hold the bottle in from sliding off, and that will not happen to you. So I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm just going to cut. It's only about 5mm difference, but it's just bloody annoying. Like, look how good that side is, man. That's perfect. Yeah, it's just really annoying. So I think I'll just maybe just cut a little bit off here, maybe to keep the heights level at the back. But I won't do that straight away. I'll give it a quick fly like it is and see if it actually matters. Maybe I'll just leave it like that. So it now weighs 454 grams like this, and I'm getting a little bit worried about the weight of it because my other Teksumo with motor and ESC on it weighs only 350 something grams, and this one with the winglets that I'm going to put on, those winglets, foam board winglets, actually weigh 9 grams versus 4 grams of the original EPP winglets. So with the winglets on, it's going to be 472 grams with no motor or ESC or anything in there. So I think what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to put a motor and ESC in, and receiver of course, and do some test flights, and I want to find out where the CG needs to be and how well it flies and how difficult it is to launch with as light a weight as possible before I get too attached to it and put more stuff on it. Because I have a habit of, as you saw with me fussing about this thing here, I have a habit of building things all fancy and trying to make it nice and then not flying them all that much. So I want to just get this to a point where I know how well it flies before I put too much more time into it. Because I've been looking at some of these blunt nose builds on the net, and I'm just sort of thinking I might have been better off with just going with a big foam block in the middle instead of a balsa and plywood heavy thing like that. Anyway, so today is going to hopefully be a little bit of flight testing. Okay, so I've glued the winglets on and I've set up the servos and everything, got the ESC receiver, motor, all that stuff in there, and it's ready for a test flight. This is about as light as it's ever going to get, and unfortunately it's already 830 grams. To put that in perspective, my other Teksumo, which I fly with a 1000 mAh 3 cell and none of this central section, that weighs 460 grams all up. So this is approaching twice as much as that. So it could be a bit tricky to launch, and I think it'll fly alright, but yeah, tricky to launch, and it's probably going to have to go quite a bit faster than normal. What else have I done in here? Nothing much. Yeah, so just for now this is how I'm going to run it, and I just have a piece of core flute which I'm going to just tape on there. And the CG, I'm putting the CG at approximately where the CG was on the other Teksumo, so just behind the spar on the bottom, although I can't see the spar on the bottom anymore unfortunately, but I've put the CG approximately where I think it was, and I'll just have to sort of shift the battery around a little bit to figure out where the CG should be. So I'm going to have to do quite a few launches and landings, and I'm a little bit worried about how scratched up this is going to get before I've even had a chance to use it with a camera. Speaking of cameras, the space for the camera there is actually, I didn't need to bring the battery forward all that much, and usually with these wings you have quite a big problem is trying to get the CG forward enough, but because I left this little bit of frame sticking out the front, I don't think I'm going to have too much trouble getting the CG forward enough, because I don't even have any FPV camera or flight controller or runcam split on here at the moment, so when that goes in, the battery could actually go back a little bit, and if I use a 4000 mAh battery, this is a 2800, so the battery will be bigger, so it won't need to come forward as much either. So getting the CG forward I don't think is going to be an issue, so that's at least one good thing about this, this setup. Oh, it's heavy. I think it'll be alright. It's a bit tricky to launch it by holding on the bottom, so I'm going to try a frisbee. I think the wind is coming from over there, roughly. Oh, not bad. It's a bit bumpy. Oh, it's not very stable. It's sort of wobbling and wiggling and wobbling and waggling around.
And I've got to keep the throttle up to about whatever that is, half throttle. Oh yeah, not bad. Boy, it's unstable. Holy crap. Yeah, this is about 90% throttle, I think. It's still bumping around. Holy moly. It is kind of windy, but I don't think it's just the wind that's causing this bumping around. See, that's about, oh, that's only about 60-70% throttle, so not too bad, I guess. Gotta say, I don't like it that much. So it's looking like this was not such a great idea. And that's about as slow as I can take it while keeping control. Yeah, so I don't think... I'm glad I tried this now, because it sort of makes me not really want to pursue this much further with all the iNav stuff on it. At least it wasn't as hard to launch as I thought it might be. Battery's dying, I think. Okay, landing. Man. Alright, that wasn't too bad. Man, I just started losing power there. That was a 2800 milliamp hour 3 cell fully charged. And I did have a battery alarm on it, but it was one of my battery alarms that's a little bit dodgy. I think sometimes it doesn't work. So we might have run that battery a bit low there. Just a little bit of water so far, that's good. I don't know, there's green lights on the battery checker. So I think this battery checker, the only thing that doesn't work on it is the buzzer. Those lights, if they're all green, which they looks like they are, should be okay. The ESC area is quite warm there. I'm just wondering if the... oh boy. Oh, look at that. Maybe the ESC was starting to die or something there. Because I stuck this Velcro tape onto the top of the ESC, which is where the heatsink is, and you can see it's all melted off. Or just the adhesive is melted off. So maybe the ESC was starting to die there. Motor is fairly warm. Oh, not really. A little bit warm. I think the motor is fine. It's only a 6-inch prop. Well, so far this plane sucks. It's becoming more of a lesson in what not to do than, hey, look at the cool thing I made. Let's see if I can give it another launch. The ESC hopefully has cooled down a little bit. This is about 50% throttle and it's whoa, it's hardly moving. Crosswind. Bumpy, yep, thought so. I guess it's not terrible. But we've still got a little bit more weight to put in it, eh? If I keep flying it, that is. But the number one thing that sort of puts me off is it's not fun to fly. It doesn't feel very good. Yeah, it likes to tip over to the side quite a lot, very quickly. Like you touch the roll stick to roll to one side, and it rolls a little bit, and then all of a sudden it rolls 2 or 3 times as much as you thought. Oh boy. It's not really something you want to be skimming along the ground with. Could do that sudden roll to the side at any moment. Alright, let's try another landing. Oh, it's bumpy. Holy crap. Ooh, it actually lands pretty good. The first time it landed quite nice and smooth too. I thought maybe it was just a coincidence, but that landing was nice and easy too. Just sort of glided down nice and level, quite easy to control once it got about 1 metre off the ground. Oh, here we go, yep, just in time. It's probably warmer than it should be. Yeah, I'm just sort of gradually beginning to lose interest in this whole design, to be honest. Anyway, it flies, but it doesn't fly very well. That's the verdict at this point. So I'm not sure what I'll do from here on. I'm sort of thinking I might just, I could probably just cut these wings off completely, although this whole section here, the way it's glued in, is going to be a bit of a problem to get off, and that too, yeah. But I do have some of that builder's insulation foam that people use for hot wire cutting wings out of. So I might just put a block of that in the middle instead of this heavy clunking wooden box, and maybe just here and there, a little bit around it, I can put a bit of plywood or balsa to reinforce it somehow. But overall, I want something that's going to be lighter than this, I think. So who knows? We'll see how it goes in some non-windy weather, because it's a bit windy today, so that was not helping, I think. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say at this point, but anyway, that's what it did so far. So thanks for watching, and hope it was interesting. Bye.